This is chapter 13 of my book, It's Not a Boy. It's called Clouds because there are clouds on the horizon and some very strange things happen in this chapter. For a start, it was coming up to bonfire night and it wouldn't stop raining. And secondly, I want to tell you about a very unusual man that worked on our farm. Here we go. When Hull Fair was over, the next thing that we looked forward to was bonfire night. I was so excited I could hardly wait. We always had a big fire, and every year we had so much fun. I wanted this year to be better than ever. But one thing was worrying me, and that was that there were clouds in the sky and it would just not stop raining. I really hoped that it didn't rain for the actual night. I couldn't bear it if it rained on our bonfire, and then our fire would not light and everything would be spoilt this year and it would not be as good as the last year. "Every cloud has a silver lining," said Dad when he came in for his mug of tea before going out again to feed his animals. I was still worried about the rain though, and in any case, I'm not sure about that saying, because he said that the sheep from Scotland would get used to living at Gum, and they never did. They never stopped trying to break out of their hoss-pasture field. They never liked living at Gum. And they would like us even less on bonfire night because the fire was being built in their field. It would frighten them, and they were already being very angry with us and sad from being away from their home in Scotland. The clouds were still there and there was a lot of worry, but to keep us from getting too anxious about the rain, us kids tried our best to collect leaves from our wood. We bagged them up and dried them in our old shed. With sacks of dry leaves, we hoped that our bonfire might still burn, even though the rest would be wet from the rain. Meanwhile, Uncle Sid was cutting field hedges day after day to build up our bonfire. Mouse always helped Uncle Sid. Mouse was one of our farm workers, and of course he was not really called Mouse. That was just a name we gave him. His real name was Michael, but we shortened it to Mickey. And then because he was very quiet, we called him Mickey Mouse. And he didn't seem to mind. And he just got on with his work, and his lopsided grin was on his face as he raked cuttings from hedges and piled them up on our bonfire with his pitchfork. Mouse was a good worker, and he worked on our farm all the daylight hours, and sometimes he even stayed when it was dark. You see, Mouse didn't have a real home. He lived in Gum Bin. When you told anybody from round here that you lived at Gum, they always laughed. Even when you gave it its full name, Gum Balding, they still laughed. You might think they were laughing at a funny place name, but they were not, because if you thought about it, Sunkstead was just as funny, and nobody laughed at that. But the thing that made everybody laugh about Gum was that there was a loony bin here. It was in a big rambling house behind some trees, and Mam said we had to call it Lunatic Asylum, but we never did. And everybody laughed anyway, whatever you said. They thought that anybody who came from Gum was from the bin and wouldn't be good at things, and so it was funny. And it wasn't fair, Because, as you know, I had quite a lot of things on my what I'm good at list, and I was trying to get some more things on it all the time. And Mouse was good at things as well. Not just farm work. He was good at other things because I spoke to him quite a lot and he told me about them. He told me some interesting things. You see, he read the whole Daily Mail every day. He told me about sport, and he was very interested in football and the games that were played all over the country. Nobody I knew could talk about sport like he could, even Uncle Sid. But even though Mouse was well read, he still lived at Gum Bin because he had nowhere else to go. Dad said he got put in the bin when he was wild, when he was a very young lad. He was accused of stealing and things like that. His parents couldn't control him, and he couldn't go to prison because he was too young, so he had to go to Gum Bin. And as he grew up, he settled down, and his parents died, and he had nowhere else to go, so he stayed where he was. He came to work for us every day on a bin bus that dropped him off at our lane end on the main road, and at night they came back and picked him up. Mum said that he would never better himself and he couldn't work hard and get on in the world because he was from the bin and nobody would give him a good job to earn good money. He wore very torn clothes with his trousers tucked into his wellies and his hair stuck up like straw. Uncle Sid was still cutting more and more branches from trees and clippings from our hedges, and every day Mouse was helping him. He was piling them up in hoss pasture just above where Billy was buried, and just next to a railway line where trains rattled past with a whistle on their way from Hull to Ringham. Of course, our little Scottish sheep were still trying to get out. Mouse talked to them gently and tried to quieten them, but they stamped and stared at him with their wild eyes. They were stuck here with us, whether they liked it or not, and so was Mouse. But unlike our little sheep, Mouse never gave us any idea that he would like to be anywhere else. He just kept helping us with our bonfire. He even helped us make Guy Fawkes. We made our Guy out of 2 sacks that were stuffed with leaves, just like Mam had done with my mattress, except she put straw in my mattress and not leaves. One big sack was Guy's body, and one little sack was his head. Dad's old sports jacket and a pair of worn-out trousers from Uncle Sid fitted him a treat. We gave him some straw for his hair and stuffed some holy wellies on his feet and tucked in his old trousers. Then I painted a grin on his sack face. It turned out to be a lopsided grin, so he looked a bit like Mouse, only he was better dressed. Our Guy was ready now, but bonfire night had still not arrived, and it was still raining, and we were still waiting and getting more and more impatient for the big night.